Coming up on Network Africa, Nigeria, Kenya and Rwanda begins coronavirus immunization programs under the COVAX vaccine sharing initiative. Senegalese authorities suspend 2 private television stations after accusing them of focusing too much on protests. Plus, United Nations Security Council fails to agree on the Tigrayan crisis in Ethiopia. Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Layo Adegoke. Nigeria has administered the first few shots of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines to frontline health workers in Abuja, the nation's capital. Dr. Cyprian Ngog became the first to receive the vaccination in the country, administered by the Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faiz Al-Shuaib. 3 other health care workers received the vaccination, including a nurse. The vaccination exercise is rolled out 3 days after the federal government took delivery of about 4 million AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines under the COVAX initiative. Health officials say 50% of Nigerians have indicated willingness to be vaccinated, while 25% remain hesitant. Meanwhile, other countries, including Kenya, the Ministry of Health official Patrick Amott was the first to get the jab. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire started vaccination drives earlier this week. Angola, DR Congo and Gambia have also received supplies under the international initiative.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to show that with this vaccination card, we also have a QR code. This is one of the requirements of the Presidential Task Force, so that if anybody needs to travel out of the country, once this QR code is scanned, it brings up the information of Dr. Cyprian, so that it shows exactly what vaccines he has taken, the AstraZeneca vaccine, when he took the first and the second doses, okay? And it will also show his photograph. So this is also an electronic card, as it were, because of the QR code. This card also contains the exact batch number of the vaccines that he has taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, joining us now is Dr. Akiala Ishaku, Senior Lecturer of Molecular Biology at the Nassau State University. For more on this, thank you so much for speaking to us on the program. Now the vaccination campaign has begun in Nigeria. What more do you think can be done to encourage citizens to receive the vaccine when it reaches them? You know, the health officials are saying that about 25% of the citizens remain hesitant to receive these jabs.
I think what we need to do as a country is to intensify more effort in terms of risk communication. We need to do a lot of health advocacy communication. This is because there are a lot of misinformation and also fake news out there about COVID-19 vaccine. So we need to tell people more that the vaccines are safe, the vaccines are very efficacious. So what we need to do is to also employ, go into public-private partnership to see how media organizations can also drive this process. I think this is one aspect in Nigeria that we have not actually done well. We need to bring private sector that can be able to drive correct information about health indices, about COVID-19 pandemic drive in Nigeria. So we need more efforts in terms of risk communication. We need to educate more people. We need to bring stakeholders into this so that they can be part of the response.
Well, do you expect, this rollout of the vaccines to improve the effect of the pandemic situation we have in the country? Perhaps we can go back to normal now that we have the vaccines?
No, I think despite with the vaccine, we cannot go back to normal. Despite with the vaccine, we need to still adhere to non-pharmaceutical safety measures. Measures such as the use of hand sanitizer. We need to also see to how we can encourage people to avoid mass gathering and the use of face masks and nose masks. The vaccine is just to create a herd immunity. I hope, Ayo, you know that there is a systemic community transmission ongoing in Nigeria, and we don't have these vaccines enough that, it will cover 70 to 80% populations of Nigerian citizens. So we only have 4 million doses. So we need to still adhere to non-pharmaceutical measures in order to achieve this response. So going back to normal is not going to be, it's going to actually take time for us to go back to normal until we vaccinate significant number of our population and achieve herd immunity. Then we can be able to gradually return back to normal. But despite with vaccination, we still need to adhere to safety protocols.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Dr. Akiala Ishaku, Senior Lecturer, Molecular Biology at the Nasarawa State University. Thank you for your time on Network Africa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, today marks 1 year since the first case of COVID-19 was recorded in South Africa. While the country remains the most affected country in Africa on record in terms of confirmed cases and COVID-related deaths, it also has the highest number of tests, done with more than 9 million tests carried out so far. Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize has participated in a number of discussion sessions to mark the day and has reiterated government's appeal for people to continue to live safely as efforts continue to contain the spread of the virus. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, reports.
It's been an eventful 365 days for the world, to say the least, in South Africa. 1.5 million confirmed cases and over 50,000 COVID-related deaths later. It's still very heartbreaking for many to look back. Nontogozo Ngobo got exposed to the virus at work mid-last year. She survived. Her father, Hlalani Ngobo, who was diabetic, didn't. He succumbed to the virus in August, aged 72.
This kind of a day is a reminder of things of pain that happen to most South Africans, to the people out there globally, that, because this thing happens so fast it happens so fast to everyone, and only now that we're realizing the pain that we've decided to put to bury as well. But it keeps coming back that, our people died without their loved ones. They died alone.
Like all countries, South Africa has stumbled through it all, and now vaccines are getting in the arms of many. Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize participated in a webinar to mark 1 year of COVID in the country with the National Press Club, which named COVID-19 the newsmaker of 2020, where he spoke on lessons learned in the past year.
I think with all of the partnership, the working together, the social solidarity and the unity of South Africa is in a better place today, even though we still have not defeated the disease, but in fact it is probably going to be easier in future to be able to face similar other challenges so that we are able to make sure that our country survives. So with that, for me, I think there's been a very good lesson of what the country can do together.
I think we can all just leave thinking about the 50,366, I think the total is now, the people who have lost their lives to COVID over the past year. We shouldn't let our guard down, as you said. We should all work together to ensure that we don't lose as many lives next year as we have in the past year.
While the recovery rate has gone above 94% in the country, The general appeal is for continued adherence to health safety regulations, especially as scientists have warned that a third wave of infections may be closer than expected in the approaching winter months in South Africa. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Perhaps you are planning a vacation anytime soon. Seychelles is opening up to receive visitors from around the world from March 25th, irrespective of whether they are vaccinated or not. However, South Africans are not going to be allowed to enter the country until further notice. In January, Seychelles announced that it had opened up to vaccinated travelers, but visitors will now only be required to present a negative COVID-19 test taken 72 hours prior to departure. There will be no quarantine requirement nor restriction on movement upon entry into the country. To politics now, we have our eyes on Senegal as authorities have suspended the signal of two private television stations after accusing them of focusing too much on protests triggered by the arrest of an opposition leader, Ousmane Sonko. The two stations affected by the decision are by the decision of the National Audiovisual Regulatory Council, Ascent TV and WALF TV channels. The channel were accused of broadcasting images of the unrest in loop after Mr. Sonko's arrest. Earlier, police clashed with supporters of Mr. Sonko in Bignona town in the southern Casamance region on Thursday. The government confirmed that one person was killed in the violence, which followed Mr. Sonko's arrest in Dakar a day earlier. Mr. Sonko has been accused of raping a woman at a salon where he went to get massages. However, he denies these allegations. He has described the case as politically motivated and an attempt by President Macky Sall's allies to ensure he can't run in the next election. Well, we have joining us now Sylvester Esekaigbe, the station manager at the United Aviation Services in Dakar. Thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us at this time? What is the update with the situation in Senegal?
So currently we are beginning to see the kind of full-blown violence that happened yesterday and that stretched up to about 3 a.m. this morning. Now we are seeing violent protests in some about 3 or 4 towns in Dakar, with the gendarmerie also who have come out to meet with these different protesters. Schools have been shut down. Workplace, there is nobody there. Everybody has been ordered to go home. Shops too, they have all been closed. The internet, we learn very soon, we will go out anytime from now. So we really don't know how the day is going to end. We're just keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that things get better today.
Well, that sounds more like an escalation of things in the country. But what do we know about Mr. Sonko's whereabouts? Well, what's the latest with his arrest?
So, Sonko was arrested yesterday while on his way to court. He was arrested for inciting public violence because actually while he was going, there was a large crowd of people behind him. They were protesting and also causing disturbance to the public. So the police quickly came to pick up Sonko and they are accusing him for actually causing this disturbance. So he's going to remain with the police. He's currently at the Gendarmerie Nationale. He's going to remain with them until his next court proceeding, which is that of the rape case with Ajisa.
Well, just before I let you go, for Ousmane Sonko, what is his next step now? Does this mean he will not be able to, run in the next election?
Well, Ousmane Sonko, he's going to remain with the police and continue with his court proceedings until the final judgment. And if he's found guilty, it's going to be a very big problem for him because he cannot contest the next presidential elections in 2024. Because here in Senegal, if you are found guilty of any rape case, you will not be eligible to contest for any public office forever, for life. I think that is the problem. That is the reason for the protest, because his supporters, they really want him to contest in the next elections, and they are ready to vote for him. So if this case continues and he is found guilty, that dream of him becoming the president dies.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Sylvester Esekaibe, Senegalese residents, joining us there. Still ahead on the program. Our Africa Tech segment discusses the effectiveness of Nigeria's national strategy in mitigating cyber crimes. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The UN Security Council has failed to agree on a joint statement on the crisis in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region after Russia, China, and India considered it was an internal matter. Diplomats say 3 African nations on the council, Kenya, Niger, and Tunisia, had supported a draft statement which would have called for immediate humanitarian assistance and a halt to hostilities while asserting Ethiopia's sovereignty. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights had earlier said there were distressing reports of continued violations that may amount to war crimes in Tigray. The UN Rights Office wants to be granted access to investigate reports of atrocities carried out by the Ethiopian and Eritrean armed forces, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and the Amhara Regional Forces. Meanwhile, Human Rights Watch has added its voice to calls for an urgent UN-backed inquiry into alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Ethiopian region of Tigray. The lobby group accuses Ethiopia and Eritrean forces of indiscriminately shelling the city of Aksum in November. Echoing a report last week by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch says Eritrean forces later massacred an estimated 200 civilians. Eritrea has previously dismissed the allegations, although Ethiopia's Human Rights Commission says they should be taken seriously. Also, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, says that Washington is alarmed by the humanitarian and human rights situation in Ethiopia, echoing the UN's call for an end to the fighting. Thomas-Greenfield is urging the Ethiopian government to support an immediate end to the fighting in Tigray.
The United States is alarmed by the humanitarian and human rights situation in Ethiopia. What's happening in Ethiopia has had and will continue to have devastating consequences for thousands of innocent people, and it poses a direct threat to regional peace and security. We need to address it immediately. The onus to prevent further atrocities and human suffering falls squarely on the Ethiopian government's shoulders. We urge the Ethiopian government to support an immediate end to the fighting in Tigray. And to that end, the prompt withdrawal of Eritrean forces and Amhara regional forces from Tigray are essential steps. And we urge the broader region to work fast and together toward a peaceful solution. For our part, the United States is committed to working bilaterally and multilaterally to help secure an end to the violence. We are committed to holding perpetrators of abuses and violations on all sides to account.
Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. In February, President Muhammadu Buhari called for an overhaul of the national strategy on cybersecurity, urging more emphasis on exploring the internet for economic growth, opportunities, enhancement of knowledge, and mitigation of crime. Now, this was as he unveiled the National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy 2021 as the overarching policy and strategy framework for driving Nigeria's cybersecurity efforts. But how effective is this national strategy in mitigating cyber crimes? We have joining us now on the program for more discussion, Confidence Stavely, a cybersecurity specialist and an ethical hacker. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, Confidence.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this recently launched National Cybersecurity Policy and Strategy. How effective would you say it is in addressing cyber risks in the country?
I must commend the Nigerian government for taking this step. It's a very bold one and telling of its intentions around the digital economy and, of course, the strong influential factors to its success or failure. In cybersecurity generally, we always say that the top management must adopt a strategy for it to make sense. So this movement by President Buhari to actually launch it is an endorsement and, of course, in line with best practices in cybersecurity. So, yes, I'll commend that. I'd also commend some of the key success indicators that I've noticed so far, which is a far cry from the strategy for, the last time the strategy was launched. The first one is that this strategy actually has an action and implementation plan, which means we can track it year by year, annually, how well, this has been implemented. It has short-term goals, it has long-term goals, and of course has mid-term goals. So which means that by this time next year, we'll be able to say, okay, has this been working? Has this been implemented? And all that. And very key, strong improvements have been made. First, there's been a call for capacity development in law enforcement officers and the law enforcement as a whole and legislature as a whole to back the fight against cybercrime. There's also now a coordinated center to manage cybercrime, and it's called the NCCC. So some of these things, and of course, the provision for legal protection for entities that actually speak about vulnerabilities that exist in systems that exist at the moment is also very commendable. So also the provision for raising awareness generally about cybercrime and cyber fraud is very commendable. So there are very many elements of the cybersecurity strategy that are very great.
Well, over the past couple of years, we have witnessed the rapid emergence of new technologies and a surge in the use of social media. But on the flip side, we're also experiencing a rise in threats posed by cyber criminals. About how can individuals and also organizations reposition themselves for enhanced engagement in the cyberspace? Just very quickly.
Okay, first and foremost, businesses and individuals must be aware of the cyber risks that actually exist, and of course know and take seriously the education and the things that they need to do to mitigate those risks. So the knowledge of it is very important. And just in context of the cybersecurity strategy as well, there is a plan there for mass cybersecurity awareness. There's a plan to educate annually, through trainings for government officials as well. Government officials. There's a training also for businesses and all stakeholders that actually manage data. So I would say that one of the key things that individuals must do is to concern themselves with, the mitigation strategies, with the things that they can do to protect themselves. One of which is to have basic cyber hygiene, like password management, turning on two-factor authentication on your social media platforms, to not divulging sensitive information about yourself online or over the phone to anyone. These are very basic things that we must go back to as individuals and as businesses to stay safe in the cyberspace.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Confidence Stavely, cybersecurity specialist. Thank you for joining us on Africa Tech.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the U.S. consulate has launched a renovated sit-in pavilion at the American Embassy in Lagos. According to the Consulate General, Claire Pierangelo, the new pavilion will further enable the process of visa administration for immigrants and visitors. She also says the consulate has been receiving visa applications in trickles due to the pandemic, and workers are doing all they can to adhere to COVID-19 protocols. Well, that's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke. Have a great weekend.